Welcome to the next lesson in our photography class, and this lesson is on metering modes and the exposure lock. What is metering? We have reviewed this a little bit before, so we're going to cover it again. Metering is your camera doing the math to determine the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO. The camera reads the light reflected from the subject and tries to set the settings so that the tones average to a middle gray, which would be the 18% gray. And the camera bases its calculations assuming that all tones within the frame average out to the mid-gray, which is 18%. So what is metering? It's your camera doing all the work for you. And you'll remember this comparison from a previous lesson where I took a photo of something black, gray, and white, and when I took the photo of just the black, it ended up looking like this, and when I took a photo of just the gray, it ended up looking like this, and when I took a photo of just the white, it ended up looking like this. So it averaged everything out. The only thing that was there was white, so it averaged it out to gray and made it gray. The only thing that was there was black, so it averaged it out and made it look gray. 18% gray card is an example of spot metering and locking exposure. So this is kind of what this lesson is going to be all about. Mainly spot metering and locking the exposure. If you put an 18% gray card in the setting and meter the camera from the gray card, so you're going to use your spot metering and you're going to put the spot on the gray card, lock the exposure reading to what it says it is correct based on that gray card, remove the card from the setting, and then take the photo. Kodak actually has some of these 18% gray cards. I saw them for around $15. I do not own one. I probably need to get one. But they suggest you also open it 1/2 stop if you're using the gray card. So the camera has no mind. We have a mind. The camera can only do what it can do. It can only do the math that it is programmed to do, just like any other computer. The details get in the way of the big picture. There's mixed lighting, which equals choices, and the camera makes choices, but they might not be the choices that you want, and so that's what metering modes is all about, is being able to make those choices instead of letting the camera make those choices. And some examples are backlit and front-lit subject matter, which complicate the big picture. And we're going to be seeing some backlit examples in a live video of my cameras. So here are the metering modes that are out there. Most DSLRs have them all, and the point and shoots, especially all the newer ones, have at least a few of these. And so both of my cameras have them. The first one is the evaluative metering mode. The evaluative metering mode is what it's called in Canon, but the Nikon calls it a matrix metering. It all does the same thing. It is also sometimes called overall metering, multi-segment, or zone metering. So it it has a lot of different terms based on what company made your camera. So when you're whipping out that manual to find it, know that it may have a slightly different name, and in fact all of these might have something slightly different. So pay attention to, as I describe, what they do, and then you'll be able to interpret that to your camera. This mode reads the entire frame and divides it into zones to compare the light from each zone to make an exposure decision. It has a choice to make. It reads the entire thing and it makes a choice and decides on what setting. It's really an advanced technology mode. It works well, but don't try to understand what it does. You just use it. And this is one that your camera probably defaults to because it is the easiest to use. You don't have to do anything. The camera just figures it all out. Of course, there's no choice with this one because the camera does it for you. And this is what it often looks like, the symbol on your camera. It's going to be that little half circle with the dot in it. And on my point and shoot, I found that it was called an IESP, Intelligent Electro-Selective Pattern. Is that not nuts? Why can't they just all use the same term? The second one is center weighted, and it looks like this image that I have down here, center weighted metering. It averages metering reads for the entire screen just like the evaluative did, only instead of evaluating them all equally, it considers the center of the frame more to make an exposure decision. However, if you are following the rule of thirds in much of your photography, and that will be a future lesson, but many digital scrapbookers, if you've taken my course 1, are familiar with the rule of thirds. And if you're using that, your focal point will often not be centered. So this center weighted is, for me, not very useful. I'm not even sure why it's there. But it is more predictable than the evaluative. And this one is a combination of the partial, which we're going to talk about next, and the evaluative metering mode. So here's the partial metering mode, and there is a sample of what the icon might look like on your camera. The partial metering reads a small area in the center of the frame. So if we back up, let's see if we can go back to the center weighted, and it's partial evaluated and partial metering mode. So it's evaluated as in it uses the entire screen, but it gives considers the center more, just like the partial. So we're going backwards again. Here's the partial metering mode. It reads a small area in the center of the frame, and this is useful for backlit subjects to meter off the subject and not the background. And you're going to see this. This is the exact example that's going to be in the upcoming video. The evaluative and the center weightive will include the background for consideration, but this partial metering will only consider where you focus, where you're going to see. And spot metering and exposure lock. Spot metering reads a small area in the center of the frame. It is just like partial metering. I don't know why we have partial metering and spot metering. I never use partial metering. Spot metering is the same as partial, only the circle that it reads is much smaller, so you can be more precise in telling it exactly what you want it to read. Some cameras have a multi-spot metering. So here's what the icon looks like for the spot metering in your camera. And in the DSLRs, this is an example of the multi-spot metering, and I did not cover this in the video. I actually remembered it right after I cut off the video. But if your camera has it, you can go look it up. I don't really ever use it, but you know, the spot metering right now for multi-metering, this is metering off the center spot. Your screen will be divided up with these spots, and you'll be able to tell it, okay, I don't want it to do this center one, I want it to meter off of this dot. And you can scroll the button around and maybe meter off of this one or that one or this one, and you can go all the way around, and maybe you want to meter right off the top. And so you have a choice of metering, but I don't ever use this either. I use this spot metering because it does everything I need it to do. Now we're going to talk about the manual exposure lock. That means you manually lock it after you get the exposure setting. And this is only found in the DSLRs. I don't think it's in any of the point and shoots. You position the spot metering dot on subject you want to obtain exposure from. Press the shutter button halfway down and the camera will calculate the exposure settings. Click a button to manually lock in the exposure, and then reposition the camera composition of the shot and take the photo. And this is exactly what my video shows you how to do, this upcoming video. So let's watch it. And oh, before we start it, I want to point out, look at this. This is an example of backlit, and my camcorder was having trouble metering. So your camcorders also do metering, and as you can see right now, it's metering off of the light outside the window, and so the camera itself and everything here in front is dark. And you can if you want to pay attention, I'm saying this beforehand, as he zooms in and out and moves around, hubby helped me help to record this. You're going to see the camera remetering based on what it has in its frame, and I think that helps you sometimes to learn about metering. And so here we go. Hey y'all, here we are in my living room, and I've set up a little vignette of flour over there for us to utilize for this lesson on metering modes. And I do have metering modes in both my Canon 40D DSLR, and I also have it in my Olympus point and shoot. So we're going to be doing videos for both cameras. Now we're going to start out first showing you the metering modes, and we're going to be using the program mode, which is going to allow me to manually lock exposure. And if I hit, gotta turn it on first, if I hit this button right here where I have this symbol, you're going to see it selects this part of the camera. I have to keep selecting it. And now then I can turn this dial and it scrolls between each one of them. This one here is the evaluative metering mode, and we've already talked about these in the video. Here is the partial metering mode, and here is the spot metering mode. And this one here is actually the center weighted metering mode, even though it doesn't look like anything. And if I can teach you anything as a great tip for digital photography in both these cameras and in point and shoots, it is to utilize this spot metering mode. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn on my live viewing, and I'm gonna get my shot here. And you can see this is not too bad as we've started it. The problem with this is that I have a window behind what I want to take a photo of. And so this is an example of a backlit photo that causes problems. Often you'll find situations, maybe you're on a beach and there's a sunset behind you, or you know, you are inside and there might be a light, some light behind them, and the person is all dark, and it's metering off the light in behind the image. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this out just a little bit. That only stays on so long, so let's turn that back on. And you're going to see that right now when I push down the shutter button partially, it's metering, but it's picking up all this light in behind it to determine the metering. And so right now we're just going to focus on this number here, which is 50. I believe that's the shutter speed because the aperture's over here. But if I move it down here, as I move it, you can see the shutter speed is going down. It's 20, and down here is 13. So I can select any spot that I want to meter off of. And let's say that I want to meter off of down in here in 10. And so I've held the shutter button down halfway, and there's this little star button here, and I'm going to manually lock that exposure. Whoops, I hit the buttons at the same time. Here we go. And I'm going to hit this, and you're going to see there's a little star that shows that the exposure is locked. Now as I move around, it stays at 10. And I can recompose my image, and you're going to see that it is getting the flowers, and I didn't do it fast enough because we went off. Let's go back down there and do it again. Lock it and go up here and get our setting and hurry up and take the photo, and you're going to see it did really well. It blew out the window in the background. The window is overexposed, but this is no longer dark. Now, just for an example, let's meter off of the light in the window and go ahead and lock the exposure and move back, and you're going to see the flowers are all dark because it metered off of something that was too light. So we can meter off of, choose anything we want to meter off of, and I can meter off of let's say this. And what's so great about the spot metering is just whatever's right inside this box is where it's metering. It's not metering off of everything in the photo. So wherever I point that box, that's where it meters. And let's say maybe I want to lock this exposure here at 25 and line that up again and take that photo. And you can see it's blown out where the lighting is, but we have some perfect exposure on the flowers themselves. And so this is using the spot metering mode in my DSL, and you have to be in one of your creative modes like program, shutter speed priority, or aperture priority, or manual in order to utilize these. However, this also works in these settings over here. So if I was on one of these, such as the no flash one, I can't use my live viewing in these modes, but it actually will do an automatic lock or an auto lock exposure. And I'm going to show you how this works on the point and shoot. It works the same as it does on the point and shoot, and you'll be able to see it on the viewer. But basically what I'm going to be doing is choosing a spot to meter off of, holding down the shutter button, and continue to hold down the shutter button. And as long as I'm holding down that shutter button, it's going to maintain whatever metering it has determined. Of course, it's also going to be maintaining its focus. So if you would meter off of something much closer, then it's also going to focus on that as well as meter off of it, and it's going to blow out what's in the background and make what's closer in focus. If you metered off of something further away and then composed the shot around something closer, then it's going to have whatever's in the background in focus and have what is in the front out of focus. That is something we're going to be looking at when we look at the next lesson on depth of field, because you can actually trick your camera into doing depth of field by using your spot metering. And we're going to be doing that in the next lesson. But for this lesson, we're going to stop for now, and we're going to get out the other camera. Okay, I'm going to close out that video, and as you heard me talking about at the end of that video, in your DSLR you may be able to also do auto exposure lock. Now, it's really hard for me to explain what that is when you can't look through the tiny little viewfinder, because the live view does not work with that. I actually was playing with mine, and it also was working in the full manual mode too, the auto exposure lock. And you also got a little snippet of the next lesson in at the end of that video on depth of field. These skills are going to be able to be used in the next lesson. But now we're going to look at the auto exposure lock. You press the shutter button halfway down to read the metering, and continue to hold the button down halfway to automatically lock the exposure. You will see as you move the camera to recompose the image that the shutter speed and aperture numbers do not change as long as you continue to hold that down halfway. Some DSLRs may automatically lock exposure too, as I was explaining with mine, but only if set to the evaluative metering mode and the one-shot autofocus mode. If you do this in the spot metering on the DSLRs, it's not going to work. So if you're in manual mode and you've got it set on evaluative and the one-shot, so when you saw me the other day put it on 3 shots in a row, it won't work on that. It has to be on the one-shot autofocus mode, and you can do this in the manual mode too. So let's watch the next video. It may take a moment for it to come up. Oh, it's coming up fairly quickly. And here we are with my Olympus point and shoot. And I'm going to show you the metering modes in this camera. You can see right now on auto how everything is really washed out because it's metering off of all that light that's coming in. And it's kind of a dreamy effect. You know, everything is artistic. It's not necessarily wrong, but you can do so much more with this, and I'm going to show you. If we go to the program mode, then we can hit menu, and in the menu you see AF mode, that's autofocus mode, and right now it is set on face or IESP. That is the same as the evaluative metering mode. And so in the program mode, in this setting, you're going to see there's no little box. And right now, let's zoom in so we can compose our shot a little bit better. It's metering so much. Hold this down, and you're going to see it's 1/6 that aperture of 5.2, and when I'm holding it down, you can see a green box. So right now it is decided, it's evaluated everything, and it's decided it's going to meter off of that right there. Now if I wanted to move this around and see if I could get it to meter off of somewhere else, now it's metering off of there. And this is so difficult, it's just so random. Now I've decided to meter off of that. It's very random. I could point it all the way down here, and it's telling me, I'm not quite sure what the yellow is, warning. But you can see it's very difficult to get a good metering mode because it's so random. So if you want to have more control, we're going to change this to the spot metering mode. And now you're going to see that the little square is right there in the middle. And so I can take this and point it wherever I want. I think we were metering down here. And that's not doing too well. Let's meter right in here. Because you have to remember that it's also auto-focusing. It's not just metering, it's also focusing. So you want something the same distance as what you're taking a photo of, but yet just a little bit darker. And it doesn't like me there. So then I've got this at 1 and 4, and I'm going to go, and you can see it's all blown out. It's not really doing an excellent job. I'm going to take that photo, and it's all blown out. I really need to find something much, much darker. How about the floor? Actually, let's try something a little bit light. Oh, right there. I'm going to meter off of that. And see, some of this is just going around and playing. And I'm going to compose my shot and take it, and now we have a much better exposed shot. It was good for the flowers, but you know, blown out for the windows, and we want to be able to see the flowers. And so this is the same thing that you would be doing in these, as I was trying to describe, these modes in this camera. So I would be finding that spot, holding it down halfway, and then moving my camera. And you got to keep holding it down halfway when you move it. You cannot let it up. And this is a great way to get better exposed photos. This is a technique that in this point and shoot I would use all the time. Let's see if we can maybe meter off of here and see what happens. See, it gets too bright, I think. So it's different with each. Different with each setting. So, see, I'm having a little bit difficulty with this. Now, another thing that you can do with this camera, I wonder if I did this, if that would help. Let's zoom out and meter off of down here. Nope, right in there. Yeah, it's not helping me much, is it? Okay, so another thing you can do is to, let's set on AF tracking in this one. And this is something that's cool. I didn't show you this in, I think it does something similar in my DSLR, but I didn't share that with you. So let's get out of the mode. And what's cool about this is you can see it says lock on OK. So I can choose what I want to meter off of. and let's see, we had it in here was about the best. This is not a good example for this particular camera. And then I can hit the OK, and it's going to lock that in at those settings. And then I can move my camera around quickly and retake the photo. So if I wanted to get a photo of what's outside and not what's inside, I could come over here and hit this, and you're going to see it locks it in right there, and as I move, that box is moving and staying there with it. And then I could go and take that photo, and in this case you would see more of what's outside, and then this here is darker. And so it's kind of cool because you lock it in a specific location, and then you can move your camera around. So it does a little bit different. You might try one or the other, but both of them work very similarly. In this one, I think, let me look. I am not sure where it is. There's a similar thing here. Here it is the AI focus. This also does a similar thing where it follows something around. I'm not very good at it, but in utilizing it. But that also works similar in that camera for focusing, for your auto-focusing. So anyway, this is the lesson, and this is the best thing I can teach you, is to get on your spot metering and choose it. Hold down the shutter button part way, and then recompose your shot and take it. Now this is also great for, I mentioned anything backlit, as in this, or sunset photos, people standing in front of the sunrise, but it's also great for candlelit photos, because if you are focused on the candle itself, it's going to be metering off of the flame, and you're not going to want it to be metering off the flame, because that's going to be all blown out. And so you can meter off of something near the candle, maybe the wall behind it or the table, and then move it so that the candle's in the frame, and take your photo. And so that would be something that is you know, front lit instead of backlit, where the same technique could be used. Maybe you have a lantern near dusk in a park, and you can't meter right off the lantern because it you know, will blow it out. So you meter off of maybe the pole just below it, and then reframe your image and take it. So it works for both front lit and backlit combinations. Well, I look forward to seeing your photos in the forum.
Okay, so we've seen the manual autofocus and our manual exposure lock and the auto exposure lock, and we learned how important that spot metering is. If I were using any of the metering modes in my point and shoot, I would just leave it on the spot metering, because you get in the habit of learning how to you know, hold that down halfway and move it with every shot. It gets really quick and easy. You also saw that it didn't work as well in my point and shoot as it did in the DSLR, but the DSLR is a lot more expensive, and they should do a lot better. So here's some examples that I mentioned. The backlit by the sunset or the sunrise, and then you have a subject, somebody standing in the foreground, so you don't want it to meter off of that background. The backlit by a window or other lighting, that is seen in what we have here. I often have that problem where there's some other lighting messing it up. Or front lit candle as the subject with a dark background, so it's switched around, its opposite. So you have something you're trying to get, and it's lit in the foreground, maybe a lantern at the park or a candle or something like that. And so the assignment for this is to go out and find backlit or front lit or something else creative that applies. I'm not going to limit you to just those two, because lighting comes from all different locations. And take those photos using these settings, play around with it, and share that photo in the forum. And I look forward to seeing your photos. I love photography.